going to post a message in the server. If you are here live, thank you very much. Drop any questions in the chat. Okay, so I'm joined today with Jim from the FSB. Nice to see you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm just getting the heads up from everyone if we're live. Just checking now. Give me 1 second. Yeah, cool. We're live. So, Jim, do you want to introduce yourself a bit to people who don't know who you are yet?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jim McLaughlin. I am the membership advisor for the Federation of Small Business. Federation is a not-for-profit membership-based organization that has been helping and supporting self-employed and small businesses since 1974. So we basically exist for our members. We're there to make life easier for them and bring as many benefits as we can to them.
Anyone watching, is Jim's camera bad for anyone else? Because it's kind of blurry for me. Can you give me a heads up? Okay, cool. All right, I think it just is what it is. Yeah, so Jim and I had a podcast fairly recently, and I think the verdict I got from people was that most people had never even heard of the FSB, which is a very common one I hear quite often. My partner and I, we used the FSB in our original business, and we had nothing but good things to say about all the people we interacted with. I think what I quite like to do today, whilst talking about the FSB, is also talking about your experience, Jim, talking about what kind of entrepreneurial life lessons that you might be able to convey to our community, and then we can circle back around to talking about the FSB. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely fine.
Okay, perfect. So
how would you like to do that?
Well, one thing I like to discuss in our social medias is I like to discuss the importance of mindset when you're going into business. I I am someone who believes that being an entrepreneur is not for everyone, and at the same time, I don't think everyone in society should have to be an entrepreneur. And I do think you have to have a certain kind of mindset when you come into this world. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, when I started running my own businesses, wasn't even aware of the term entrepreneur. It's almost like a term that's entered the English language in much more frequency in later years. We just refer to myself as a businessman, someone who started his own business. I used to think of entrepreneurs were people like Richard Branson, the guys who made so much money that that was what the definition of an entrepreneur was. Whereas I think it's just more accurately someone who's prepared to have the strength to follow their own convictions. They think they can do things better than other people, and get on and do it. Give a client a service, get out there and learn what it's like to run a business, be successful. But it comes with potentially great upsides, but it comes with lots of responsibilities and challenges along the way.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think he is a very good example where you mentioned Richard Branson there, because as far as entrepreneurs go, he's a very clever, outside the box thinking chap, isn't he?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the point I was making is that I think people get drawn towards, I want to be an entrepreneur because they think they want to be wealthy, and they think business is an easy way of doing it, and it isn't. And he's had so many failures in his life, which is fine because that's not a problem. And the Virgin brand, it's not all one-way traffic. They've had some absolutely fantastic successes, and they've had some whopping failures in terms of what they've done. It always amused me that one of their failures was given that they're called Virgin, they failed massively, and they tried to enter the condom market, and Virgin condoms just didn't take off. So that always amused me. But yeah, I mean, that's the point. They regardless of the success of the brand or where they are, and he does think outside the box, but thinking outside the box doesn't mean success. It's still got to work as a business, which he has proven absolutely how to make that happen, but it doesn't mean everything he does turns to gold.
Nice. Your camera is dropping in and out a bit. Do you know if your internet, your network is holding up okay?
It says I'm on full bars. If you wish, I can switch my internet service. If you bear with me 2 seconds, I'm not sure. Maybe that's what it is.
Not sure. Let us know. In the meantime, let us know if you have any questions in the chat, guys. If you're watching live from YouTube, there's a live chat there. Okay, I think we can just continue as we are, because it seems to be dropping in and out, but it's okay. So, for you personally, when you were pursuing your businessman lifestyle and finding all the success that you did you have a set routine in your life, or were you fairly carefree? Did you take each day as it comes, or do you think it's important to have a routine and kind of like a everyday to-do list that you check off as you go?
Have I lost connection?
Not sure. If anyone is watching, let me know if the video is good. Couple of waves. Can you still hear me, Jim? Sorry, guys, just technical difficulties. Just give us one moment. You able to hear me, Jim? Okay, it says it's okay. Interesting. Right, just give me a moment. I'm just going to message Jim. The spoils are going live, eh? You always want it to go perfectly, but it's not perfect every time. Just give us a minute, guys. Okay, Jim can't hear me, so I'm just going to try and re-invite him. Okay. You tell me, guys, in the audience, what do you think about mindset? Do you think it's important for success, or do you think you can achieve it without thinking about it too much? Because I know we're all Amazon FBA sellers, whoever's watching this, or even if you're not, you're just into business. The variety when I talk to people is quite broad, and to me, mindset's always been a really important thing. But I speak to quite a few people who never even think about it. You know, probably more people who have quieter minds maybe don't think about mindset, not in like a stupidity sense, but I mean, some people ruminate a lot more than others, and I find people who ruminate a lot tend to think about mindset more. Jim, are you able to hear me now?
I am, absolutely. I'm back. I did what you suggested. I left and re-entered. Is the camera better as well?
It's not, but that's okay. We can just proceed.
Okay.
So, what was the last thing you heard? Did you hear my last question on mindset?
I didn't. Apologies. No.
That's okay. Yeah. So we were talking about Richard Branson as as like a poster boy for successful entrepreneurialism, and I was asking, in your opinion, how much weight do you put into mindset and even routine? Like, do you think it's really important, or is it something that you as a business owner can manage without even thinking about?
No, I think mindset's hugely important. You know, you have to be resilient. You capable of just getting up and going again, getting up and going again. I mean, you can't walk away from something. It is literally, you've just got to say, okay, how can I do what I just did wrong better? Or how can I learn from that? How do I do it again? So mindset's massively important. And actually accepting things going wrong as a good thing. So that's important. And yeah, having being systemized and managed and organized and knowing what that is. So procedures are really important as well, because otherwise, you can't just depend on thinking it's a natural bit. It's not. Just work out whatever a procedure is and follow it. You can write the procedure, you can make your own procedures, but you then need to follow them to to be efficient and being successful.
My partner and I have a rule that every Saturday we write a new SOP, and we call it SOP Saturdays. And it's just one of those things that it's only once a week, but when you know you've got it on the schedule, you make sure you do it, because otherwise you get so busy you often forget. So I completely agree with you having the policies and the framework in place. I personally don't think you can scale a business without having those in place.
No, and without them in place, who can pick things up whenever you're not there to do it? You know, it's just fundamental for a business to have good SOPs in place, to have them um, documented, but equally, like you said, I mean, I love the fact that you update them. You know, you basically say, okay, what do we need to update? How do we change from what we did before? So yeah, it's key. It's key for anything to have an operational system or procedure that you follow. You can't be efficient without it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. So a lot of people I talk to personally, do you know the expression imposter syndrome?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So to me, I think imposter syndrome is part of the journey to learning new things, because we all have to suck in the beginning at learning a new skill or a new career. You know, a lot of people might be coming from a 9 till 5 and now working for themselves full time. So have you ever faced imposter syndrome? And or alternatively, going the other way, have you ever faced burnout in your career because of the success you've achieved?
Um, no, I don't think I have ever faced burnout. I think that resilience factor's always kicked in. I've always just picked myself up and gone again,
Mhm.
regardless of what's happened, as opposed to burning out. Regards imposter syndrome, I think everybody suffers from that in whatever it is. Something if you feel that the other people in the room, and not necessarily a physical room, but the other people, um, or the other things in a room, if you feel inadequate with regards to where you are with it, it's you're always going to feel an element of that. I mean, I remember one of my good friends who um was massively successful in banking and then became a banking partner of one of the big four of PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I used to tease him and I said, how did you ever get those jobs? You know what? Because you're not that good. And teasing him. And he used to say, I know. He said, I said, my biggest fear, I lie awake at night thinking someone's going to work it out one day. So that and that, that kind of encapsulates that whole thing about imposter syndrome. So even when you are good and even when you're doing it, you still think someone else is going to catch you out and find out that you're not as good as everybody else thinks you think you are. So yeah, it's just a natural thing. It's not a problem. It's nothing to be frightened of. It's just something to say, yeah, well, like everybody else feels it at the same time as me.
Yeah, again, completely agree. And going back to Richard Branson, I loved one of his quotes where he said, "If anyone offers you a job with a really good salary, but you don't know how to do it, take the job and figure it out later." And
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that mindset, because I think most of us are going to feel imposter syndrome in the beginning of anything we do. But like yourself, the more you expose yourself to these new circumstances, these new opportunities you get, you do kind of get more and more used to it, don't you? And as soon as you start to swim in better circles and you surround yourself and network with the right people, as you say, it's always going to be there a little bit, but I think just experience topples any feelings of insecurity a lot of people feel when they get into this kind of world.
Yeah, I think whether it's in business or any walk of life, a lot of people will have met people that they thought and felt a bit of imposter syndrome, and then within a relatively short period of time, a week, a month, whatever, they start thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. That guy's way worse than me. I can do that job 3 times better than he was ever doing it. And so if you remember that every time you have a feeling of imposter syndrome, just look around the room or look at the other people you feel an imposters to and think, yeah, really? Maybe not. Who knows? I mean, will I be thinking that in 3 months? Thinking that in 6 months? I think that helps you cope with it well, just by allowing yourself to think, yeah, well, let's just see where it ends up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think if you have that open mindset that you're not really worried about how it's going to end up, you just want to see what you can do. I think it frees up a lot of confidence to just try, which yeah, really important for people to think about. We've got a question in the chat. I just wanted to ask you. We can to and fro between business mentality and FSB. I think that's a good way to approach this. So
Sure.
Rose has asked, what has been the best thing about being a member of the FSB for you?
Oh, that's really easy. When I joined FSB as a member myself, which I am, I just saved fortunes. I just knew that in business, the amount of money I had been spending on getting things I wasn't capable of doing myself, like non-disclosure agreements or contracts or policies for my business or T's and C's for our website or whatever it happened to be. I kept having to go off and paying for those things. So without question, the great thing for me was just this resource that I could go onto this document library, and just about everything I needed was on there, and it was included in my membership. So anything that saves you money and does it efficiently. I equally wasn't having to wait 4 or 5 weeks or 6 weeks for a lawyer to produce it. It's there, it's done, it's already in place. I've just got to add the variables.
Yeah, I think focusing a little bit on the Amazon niche, because that's our community. One thing I was thinking was when you're a member of the FSB, you have that legal advice support. If there's any policies that you aren't familiar with, one thing that you could do is just send them to the FSB, ask them to review them, and then ask them to give advice based on what you can do. Because a lot of the people who do Amazon might wake up one day and their selling privileges have been removed and they have no idea why, and Amazon gives these vague reasons. So I think the FSB having the legal experience can at least help you understand what's going on, and then obviously you can send more of those questions our way. Jim, Reese said you mentioned contracts. Do they review contracts for you?
No. So not within the membership fee. So the answer is yes and no, actually, to be precise. So what happens is we have over 1,500 templated contracts and guides that sit inside our portal, and they are fit for purpose for the vast majority of things. If there's a bespoke contract or a third-party contract that you want reviewed, that's not included within the membership, but the lawyers will do it at a massive discount over what you would be paying if you went to those lawyers direct. I think I'd also add to that, you can actually, I mean, there's no how many calls you can make to the lawyers. So you can book a call with a contract lawyer and phone them up and get guidance on any clauses you're unsure of. So whilst they might not review the actual contract, we can certainly have a conversation surrounding something you're unsure of or what it might mean.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's good to know. Okay, so bouncing between FSB and your personal business experience and everything you've learned along the way, what was the decision in your career that you made that you felt was risky at the time, but the risk was worth it for the reward that you received?
I suppose the easiest way to judge that is where was my biggest reward. And yeah, I was buying services from a company when I was back in financial services for my own business. And the company I was buying the services from, I, in the end, agreed to be part of their company and help them promote services to other people like me. And that was done on a pure contingency basis. And I actually did the work of recruiting for them for almost 2 years before it ever became, before it was monetized, before I received a penny from it. But I knew that work would accumulate, and once it triggered, it would, it eventually would turn into significant. So in that particular occasion, I think after 18 months, I was earning zero. And after probably 24 months, I was probably earning 10,000 quid a month from it. And then within a short period from that doubled. But there was the big risk of all that lead-in time as to was it worth it. And then eventually that business, I think I mentioned when we did the podcast, when that business sold for a large amount of money, that transformed my life in terms of the shareholding I had and what it meant in terms of value. So that was the biggest success from a risk I took. But there was many times in those 2 years that I thought, am I doing the right thing here? Should I not just be doing my day job where I earn money as I go for every single little bit that I do in it. So yes, that's probably, I think that answers that question.
That answers the question incredibly well. Yeah, I think that perfectly encapsulates the lifestyle of most business owners. You know, most people, if they're smart enough, at least in our space, they'll be earning profit, but they'll be reinvesting back into their business. So most of us aren't paying ourselves salary whilst we grow and scale and reinvest into the business. And I love the idea that most of us are doing this without concrete evidence that it's actually going to pan out. You're essentially you're taking a risk on yourself, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did in that scenario, and it ended up being incredibly valuable to you. So, congratulations! Yeah, that was a fantastic answer. um, so in that scenario specifically, what made you decide that that was the right choice? Was there anything in particular that made you see into the future?
I was attracted to, I mean, I was in the financial services space. I was attracted to buying that company's services for myself because of the way they delivered them. I thought, yeah, as a buyer of product, I was very fussy, very demanding, very exacting in what it is I wanted the service to be, and they ticked all those boxes. So I thought, if they tick those boxes for me, that's gotta be gonna be great for a lot of other people. Um, so that was the point. The product was for me second to none. it it had competitors in the space, but they didn't get anywhere close to the way in which this particular company delivered what it did. So believing in what it is 100% is probably the most important factor in being prepared to take that risk. And so I guess contrary to that, there have been lots of times when I've been offered lots of opportunity that I could make a lot of money and profit from something, but I didn't believe in the product, or I didn't believe in the people offering the product. I didn't believe in the service. And so the integrity of being able to do that just because I could make a lot of money was never something I was prepared to do in the short term, because long term it would destroy my whole reputation. So I think that's the thing. You gotta believe in the integrity of the product, and that it's capable of achieving what people will be buying it for, and doing that better than anyone else.
Hmm. So when you made that decision in your life, did you have anyone who was concerned because you would be working for so long without a salary? Did you have anyone who thought maybe it wasn't the best decision, or do you always have supportive voices around you?
No, you very rarely have supportive voices.
Mhm.
The reality is, it doesn't matter. Anyone who goes into business, it starts with their parents going, "Well, wouldn't you be better off getting a job? Well, you get more security." That's classically what happens, and then that spills out into whatever your um, circle of friends or who you spend time with. Typically they'll see the weaknesses in it, and think they're helping, genuinely thinking they're being helpful, trying to point it out to you. So I don't think many people have much supportive voices around what if they're going to venture into running the wrong thing, being responsible for what it is they do. Most people are scathing, and normally there's a lot of those people, not all of them, might end up equally being jealous when it does work, when you do become successful.
Yeah, that goes along very well with what I've experienced so far, where I actually thought this was a British culture thing, that kind of everyone wants to keep up with the Joneses, everyone wants to see their friends doing the same as them but not better. That's how I perceived it. But the more I talk to my friends internationally, the more I realize that this is a human thing. A lot of people don't want to see you doing better than you, or they don't want to see you break the mold of the way they think life should be. And I think a lot of business owners do that. I think we take very big risks for eventually, hopefully, very big rewards. And I think a lot of people can't conceptualize that in their own minds. So they're not supportive. So it seems everyone I speak to says that no matter how high up you talk to, it seems to be the case for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, the simple and quick answer is, not many people are supportive. You just got to believe in your own convictions.
For sure. If you can't believe in yourself, who can you believe in, right?
For sure. Yeah.
What does family mean to you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, it's the thing that you find most precious in life. You know, so I mean, this weekend I've got two of my children coming to visit me because it's my birthday this weekend. So you
Happy
know
belated
that
birthday.
though you know, I just so thank you. Well, it's not yet. It's in advance. My birthday's at the weekend.
All right. Okay.
But they're coming up anyway. You know, yeah, you know, it's just fantastic spending time with family. And by me, you know, I guess the definition I'm thinking downwards towards children and just the great times you have with them, because you know they're the you know, I remember learning years ago in life you can't actually get to pick your family, but you do get to select your friends. So friends are also important, but you know, but family is huge. It's huge. It gives you huge satisfaction. It gives you huge comfort, with the things that you can do to help and support family.
Yeah, definitely. The reason I ask is because I think when we are pursuing this kind of life, you know, when we're pursuing our own businesses, there's so much work that's involved in doing that. You do inevitably have to make sacrifices. And for me personally, I'm working this hard because I'm working because I want to support the people I love. I'm not someone who's wildly into flashy cars or anything like that, but I just want to know that my family members are, you know, looked after financially okay. And I think there's a hint of irony there because me working so hard to try and look after them financially means I have neglected them at times by just being there, you know, by being so busy. So it's interesting how each business owner approaches their free time and their work time.
Yeah, you never get the balance right. No one ever gets the balance right. It's just one of those things. But like you do with your weekly SOP on Saturday, your Saturday SOPs, you know, it's something that there's no harm in continuously rebalancing. You'll get it wrong again, but there's still no harm in rebalancing.
Yeah, absolutely. And your schedule doesn't have to be set in stone, does it? You can always find time in places.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But it does, you know, it does. And the thing with family as well is, you know, you talk about sacrifice, and it is business is huge sacrifice to lots of things in life. Um, but you got to remember with family, they're going through that sacrifice as well. You know, so if you're not earning for a period of time, or you're, you know, they unfortunately don't get the same benefits they might have got if you had been earning during that period and things. So they're also going through what those sacrifices are. So they're fully entitled to benefit from the rewards equally when that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't say it better myself. Definitely agree. So you were very transparent last time that which I very much appreciated, that you can't go through this journey of success without hitting loads of failures along the way. So I know you discussed it a bit last time, but in your own words, can you just walk us through one of the biggest failures that you believed you had that you actually were able to recover and turn into a positive?
Uh, ooh, it's a tricky one because I consider like the failures as ones I didn't turn into a positive. I mean, the positive is that I've learned from them, and that every
Yeah.
you know, and so the interrogation of that failure. So as opposed to turning it around from a failure to a success, I think the failure is just the learning exercise that helps you be successful in whatever venture it is. It's quite tricky to turn around because you don't think of it as a failure if you've turned it around. So yes, you know, there've been lots of businesses that I call it pulling. You know, I've always referred to it as pulling rabbits out of hats. You know, there's lots of businesses where I look back at it and go, I don't know how the hell we survived. I don't know where those rabbits and what hats they came out of, but you do it. But they've been successes. That's just been the journey along the way. So I think a failure for me is one where you draw a line under it and say, okay, that was a failure. That didn't work. And what did I learn from it? So I think that's the key things. As I mentioned last time, I mean, I don't actually know I should work this out. Um, I think it's part of the psychology of failure. I've never actually recorded the proportion of failures to successes, but it's probably in the realm of two-thirds failures, one-third successes, in terms of actual entities or businesses that I've set up, or being part of setting up with other business partners. So there's definitely been a lot more failure than success for sure. But that's the learning book.
Yeah, I think I think we said this last time, but you almost do learn more from failures than you do successes sometimes, don't you? Because sometimes things can go well and you don't know why. Sometimes things go badly and you definitely can see why. So whilst it's not enjoyable at the moment, I think as long as you can be agile and respond to the adversities as they come, I think there's so much value in the bad decisions that we make that we learn from. And you mentioned earlier how you have to just be adaptive. You have to work with the environment that you have. A lot of the people doing Amazon FBA won't know what agile business methodology is, but that's essentially the heart of it, isn't it? It's being adaptive to the situation as it develops.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. And I think recognizing when you're successful, you just assume it was because of you. When you're when you have a failure, you know it's because of you. So, and that's the sort of the kick in the nuts, if you like, in terms of trying to work out what the hell did I do wrong? Why did I not work it out? So that's why you learn a lot, and you don't really learn from successes. You just think that's because I was doing it right anyway. So you don't really learn anything from that.
The thing I learned from success is that I like it and I want more of it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But it's interesting. I have this conversation with lots of business owners and who then go on to become investors in other businesses, etc. And often they forget the amount of effort it took to make the business that was successful because they're judging it at the end. So they're judging it and then they think, okay, I'd like to replicate that. I'm going to invest in other businesses. And they just happen and it's quite regular for a successful business owner to have a failure immediately afterwards or with their next ventures.
Interesting.
Because they think they're going to be successful again, and they don't have the same desperation to make it work that they did with the one that was successful, because they think it's going to work for them and things like that. There's just so much hard effort and toil that you forget about. It's a bit like a toothache. It drives you mad when you have it, and about 6 months later, you kind of remember it was annoying, but you've forgotten all about it. It's not. Whereas when you have it, it's fully encompassing. You just think this is the worst thing in the world. This bloody toothache. Just take it out. You know, I want rid of it. But forget what that pain's like. A few months later.
There's an interesting thing with mentoring and teaching where at some points you're so far along in your advancement with whatever you do that it's actually really hard for you to remember what new people in the beginning feel. And I think it's very similar to what you were just mentioning there. It's almost like a selective memory. You forget how much work is involved in building the thing. Uh, and I think humans do have a bias towards the end, don't they? We remember the end of it because it was the closest period to where you are now.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was away for the weekend last weekend, and it was a horrendous journey. I won't go into the details, but I still had a great weekend away, and I have pretty much forgot. Just because you mentioned that, you've just reminded me of how horrible the journey was getting there. But you forget it because at one point I thought I wish I wasn't even going away. This is just a waste of time. Um, but the point is, you remember that was great at the end. Enjoy what pleasures you got, what were the fun, was it good, and you forget about that painful bit and getting there. So
Yeah, like going to a music festival when it rains the entire time. You're just miserable, but at the same time you enjoy yourself. And then in retrospect, you loved it.
yeah, yeah, that's how. So yeah, in business terms, you just got to stick at it. You got to work hard. Don't worry if you think things aren't going, because if you just work hard and stick to the principles, and that's how people come good.
So with the with the failure in mind, what do you think is a failure that every entrepreneur ends up learning? And it would be amazing if they could learn it without making it themselves. I know you've probably interacted with so many different business owners and different niches. Is there a common theme that you always see?
Um, they're never prepared for not having their business is the biggest factor. Um, Very few business owners. I mean, that's not answering your question, but the thing that's common with all business owners when they exit a business is exiting a business is almost emotionally, it's the combination of um, bereavement and divorce, because you've lost your purpose, you lost your identity, you've lost what you were doing all day, every day. You were really important within the business that you own. Now you're not. Now your job's probably to take bins down at the weekend and try to find someone to play golf with or whatever. So, you know, it's that's common. That's the probably the biggest mistake successful business owners make, is not preparing to be successful, not preparing to understand what that looks like on the other side, and what, you know, what should they be doing about that in advance.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of visualization. I really like to try and visualize what I want to achieve. And something very similar that I've found when I talk to people who are fairly new into this kind of world is that a lot of people's ambitions and goals are actually a lot less, I think, than what they should be. You know, a lot of people dream really, uh, a lot of people dream of things that, in the grand scheme of things, they can actually achieve fairly quickly. And, you know, they're planning this out for their whole life ahead. So when you say people don't really plan for success, I believe that, because the amount of people I speak to who their life ambition is to make 10K in 1 month, and you know, more often than not, you'll come into business, and that's just level one, isn't it, for a lot of people?
Well, whatever it is until you get there. It's still always good to have an objective, but like you say, it's equally important to shorten the length of time it takes you to get there. And when you get there, then you want to know what's next. You know, 10 grand's great, but 15's better. Um,
Yeah.
so, you know, so how do I do that? How do I go from here to there?
I think people often overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 10.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
So, have you ever had an experience of working with business partners where it didn't go so well? And how did you navigate those waters, if so?
Oh, many times. Um, so yes, having the wrong business partner is part of being in business. You know, it's I always align it with, it's like relationships. You know, some getting married before you've been on lots of dates and maybe the odd holiday is always a bad idea. So getting married on the first days, you know, not really preparing you for where it's going. And that can often be the case in business. You see only the good things of why you should go into business together really quickly without exploring all of the things that might not be aligned, or you know, where it goes. So yeah, I've and extricating yourself from that is expensive, but it's something that if you've got the wrong business partner, that's, you definitely need to get away from the business partner, because the alternative is that business will fail completely and will cost you. And I've had those experiences for sure. Um, and you know, I've even repeated the experience. You know, I've been in business with there's one, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but you know, I've been in business with an individual that failed, and went back into business with the same individual 10 years later. Funny enough, it failed again. But you know, I'd forgotten all the reasons as to why it failed, and it wasn't the product, and it wasn't, you know, because often the ideas and products are good, but the the personality, the way someone acts you know, they don't often change the way that is. So yeah, it is. I think it's very important to um, not only find the right partner to be in business with, but to interrogate it continuously and to be honest with each other about why you differ, not about what you agree on. You have to really get to grips with at all times what it is you don't agree on. How are we going to deal with that? I think differently, you know, as opposed to, well, I don't agree with you. We're going to do it my way. It doesn't work. So it's that, you know, it's really the recognition of differences, and coming to an agreement to how you're going to accommodate the differences, not by what you do together.
Yeah, so my business partners and in
Oh,
Seller Smart, we felt very lucky having met each other, because we networked with so many people, and I've always had the mindset I want to interact with as many people as I can in my niche, because you never know who you're going to find. And we all felt like we struck gold finding each other to work on Seller Smart together, but because of how many iterations of people we discussed previously, we're very, very cautious with who we let into the ecosystem, because you might see someone that you think is a really great opportunity. And to anyone out there listening to this who does Amazon FBA, for a lot of people, you're going to share leads with people. You're going to get groups where you source together, where you share leads. You might share virtual assistants, and you have to be really, really careful with who you introduce into that ecosystem, because myself and my business partner Reese, we've had a really good dynamic with a couple of groups before the one we're in now, and just one bad person into that group can destroy the entire thing for everyone. They can change the dynamic. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. uh, can you
Yeah.
still hear me? Because it's looking grainy on my side.
Yes, I can still hear you. No, I
Okay,
can still hear
perfect.
you.
Perfect. Okay, so changing the pace a bit, just away from the failure side of things, let's look towards scaling and systemizing the business. So, what systems and automations to you made the biggest difference in your businesses when it comes to scaling them?
Basic measurement factors. I think to be able to scale a business, there's two things. You got to know where it is you want to get to. So there's lots of ways of defining where you want to get to. It might be an egg value, it might be a production value, it might, but you need to identify what that is, and then you need to know where it is you actually are today. So where am I today? And when you do those two things, then you can work out, well, how do I go from here to there, and being able to apply lots of sensitivities to that program of growth, or that journey with well, what if we did this then, or what if we did that? How would that accelerate or decelerate? How are we going to get to where we want to get to? So I think um, it's some basic business basics are: know your numbers, i.e., what number do you want to get to? What number are you at today? What needs to change to improve, to change it from this number to that number, and then that's and putting it, but it's not complicated. So often, it's in a real simplistic way. If you're in a sales process, or a business is selling a product, then for every potential customer they attract, they do business with 1 in 10 of them. Then you've worked the maths out. It's not difficult to say, well, we want to move from 10 customers to 100 customers. Well, then that means you've got to move from having 100 prospects to 1,000. And then, whilst that sounds obvious and simple, most people don't apply those metrics. They just think, I want to get to 100, without actually working out, yeah, that means we need to have 1,000 prospects. So what's required to get 1,000 prospects? How much, because you have to work. So you're working backwards in terms of what the fundamentals are. But they're just procedures, and they're not complicated. They're genuinely not complicated, but they're not easy to do. It's like
Yeah,
gym
yeah.
membership. You might be brilliant with your gym membership in January, but by March, you're lucky if you're going once a month, never mind 3 times a week. The target of what you're trying to achieve hasn't changed. You've just changed your attitude towards doing it. So, but if you want to achieve something, you'll keep doing it because you've recognized that's what's required.
Yeah, completely agree. And just focusing on our niche for a second, whenever we talk to people who are struggling to find products to sell, we always that's almost instantaneously the question we ask: how many reps are you doing? How many hours in the day are you putting into sourcing? And if you've gone to 10 suppliers in a day and looked through their catalog and not found anything, what happens if you change that to 100 a day? It's a game of numbers and repetition, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can become efficient in how you're doing it. I mean, we'll get into detail, but there's all there. With all the developments in tech and AI and all that, all those new things, they will allow you to maybe interrogate 1,000 rather than 100, or 100 rather than 10. So there's lots of tools to help you do it, but they aren't going to do it unless you know that's what it is you need to do, and make that happen. But you've got the numbers have got to be followed. You've got to make them happen.
Yeah, for sure. I've said to my team that no one's job's going to be at risk with AI. And I work with some family members as well. So we've all set the expectation with each other that with the advancements of AI, nothing is going to change, but the productivity output just needs to be much higher, because now there's no excuse for it not to be, because we have so many tools that some of the tasks that we used to do that would take 2 days, you can do in 15 minutes now. So if you've got a team that's educated in how to use the tools effectively, I think the productivity output is just going to be insane. For me personally, I'm really excited to see what happens with society over the next 5 years. I know a lot of people are going to lose jobs, but I think if we adapt quick enough, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what we can actually build as a species. It's going to be very interesting to see, especially from a business standpoint.
Well, I mean, there's a philosophical point. I mean, will they lose jobs or will they just change jobs? So, that
Yeah,
goes back to people's appetite for change. One of the best business books I ever read was Who Moved My Cheese? And it all talks about, it's just it's like a kid's book almost, but it talks about the principle of understanding. Are you prepared to go with change, or are you prepared to fly in the face of it? So yeah, it doesn't really matter what the new tech, and it will do all sorts of things. And undoubtedly it'll make certain functions redundant. It doesn't mean you don't have to have a job. It just means it might be something different to what it is today. That's your choice. So losing a job, I think someone's choice is because they just didn't want to move with the times, or they didn't want to, do a slightly different job. But going back to my point, the numbers are still the numbers, because that's
yeah.
what, if you want to go from 100 to 10, it doesn't matter what methodology you use. That's still what you have to do.
Yeah, I think there's two truisms to humans, is that one, we're always fearful of change, but two,
Yeah.
we're some of the most adaptable animals on this planet. So whilst everyone is very terrified of this looming change because it's something that none of us have ever seen before, I have no doubt that we'll adapt and get used to it, because that's just what we do. That's what humans do. But inherently everyone's going to be scared of it just because it's new territory.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
opportunity, not threat.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And we're talking to a community of people that I think, I was saying this in our community earlier today. I think people who are listening to this live call are one step ahead of the game, because if you're completely reliant on your entire income being given by someone else, being given by another business, that is inherently fragile. Whereas if you're setting your business up and you're learning new skills every day and you're growing your own team, to me, I just see that as so much more secure. And that actually leads into one of the next questions I had. A lot of the people in this community will be looking to hire their first virtual assistant, their first employee soon. So, what was your first hire like as a business owner, and how did that go?
Um, so it was a real assistant as opposed to a virtual one,
Mm,
um, because that was, I knew all the things that I was really bad at, and not only bad at, I had no appetite to do them, and that was classic administration procedures. I knew what had to be done. It didn't mean I wanted to do them. So yeah, support for recognizing your weaknesses and just employing someone way better than you are at whatever those weaknesses are. Um, so yeah, I think hiring's all about just accepting that people are going to, hopefully you can find people better than you.
yeah, yeah, that's
A lot of people,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, failure is often related to people that think what they do the job better than everybody else within their business or their organization. I can't think of anything worse. I love being the worst at everything in my business. That's
Yeah.
that's heaven. So
Yeah, I think that's so true. We get wrapped up in this mindset that I don't want to hire someone to source for me because no one's going to be as good as I am, and then you often find that if you pay someone 40 hours a week to do a job, they'll probably end up being much better at that than you are.
yeah, well, particularly the bits you don't want to do, and frees you up to do the things you do like doing. That's the point.
Okay, so I've picked your brain for a good amount of time now, so I think the audience probably has a really good understanding of who you are and your experience. So let's go into a bit about the FSB, so you can help me let the audience know why they're such a good organization. So if you had to pick one, what would you say is the most underrated benefit of being an advisor and a member within the FSB?
Oh, look, I think no one ever thinks they're going to have problems in their business. They just think,
Mm.
oh no, we're okay. We do everything brilliant. We'll never have a problem, and that's just not how it is. So FSB is, for me, unquestionably the best value tool any person in business or any self-employed person can have in their armory for being in business. So it's just things that it's the things you don't know how to deal with and don't want to deal with, where you just rely on FSB doing it for you. So and you know, and the mantra behind FSB is that it was created to represent all small businesses through lobbying government on stuff that government would pass that's unfair. And we still do that. We still stand up for that small business community. But for the members, we equally recognize we got to represent value. We got to represent something that basically says, you're going to have problems you don't even know you're going to have yet. Come to us, we'll solve them. Um, and on the other hand, we equally know, and by the way, we also know you like meeting other business owners and learning and maybe creating new opportunities, so we provide that for them as well. So it's yeah, it's not sophisticated. It's actually a pretty basic I mean, it is a basic tool. It does two things. One is gives you opportunity to meet lots of other business owners and sell product, but that's kind of what you're in business for. And secondly, you have a lot to deal with, and who do you turn to? And so that's the entry level for all the problems you're going to have in business.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised by the amount of people I speak to who don't seem to see the value in networking with other business owners outside of their niche. Because whilst we are, an e-commerce community, and you are from a completely different niche, as I mentioned last time, when you get to a certain point, business talk is business talk. I was having an amazing chat with a CTO the other day where the problems he faces in his business, which is completely different to mine, are exactly the same. And the higher up the level you go with people who become business mentors, they can train anyone from any niche because they realize that all business owners have the same problems. So one of the biggest things that I've not utilized with the FSB that I will this year, I'm going to start attending, is I am going to start using the networking events because it's so fascinating to talk to these like wonderfully courageous and adventurous business owners who get into the most wacky business ideas that I never think would work, but they make a lot of money from them. I love that idea from learning from other people outside my niche.
I mean, it's an important point you make. And I often say to people, when you go to conferences in your sector or your niche or whatever it is you're doing, sometimes the best part of the whole conference, the coffee break, because you're speaking to other people who are there attending like you, and you talk about what they do, and they tell you, and something they say sparks an idea of how you can change something you're doing. That's within your niche. But you just imagine what that's like outside your niche. There's so much experience from people doing things in their sectors that they'll tell you something and you go, I wonder if there's any application of that in what I do. I wonder if there's some way I can leverage that concept and bring it into business. So you will be exposed to significantly more conceptual ideas and ways of doing things. So I think that's the value. That's the massive benefit. And so
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
huge educational opportunities.
I always kind of self-define myself as someone I'm one of those people who I'm an ideas guy. I may not be the execution to the idea guy, but I like to think I'm someone who comes up with ideas very, very regularly. And I swear half the reason I have those ideas is just because my mind is so open to hearing other people's experiences. So I really like it, to anyone who's listening to this, I can't stress enough how valuable it is to hear the wisdom and experiences from other people, because they might, as Jim just said, they might trigger something in you that makes you realize, hey, that problem I've been having for the last few weeks, I could probably take that and bring it to my business and fix it. Or yeah, they can just unlock your mind to avenues that you hadn't considered. And this is one area that I think AI isn't going to replace humans entirely, is the value I get from talking to my colleagues and my friends. AI is really intuitive and AI is really good at letting you think outside the box, but that human ingenuity that comes from just networking, so far, I don't think is going to be replaced just yet.
The human bit will always be there. I always remember, I was when I was married, there was a person I was working with in my car with me, and my wife phoned me on in the car, or I phoned her actually to do something. And as soon as I come off the phone call, he said, you know, that was absolutely amazing. He said, she sounded so really happy to hear from you. You don't normally hear that tone of voice with people when they're really pleased to hear. And, you know, and from that day, and I went, oh, yeah. And I probably always like that. I just hadn't noticed it. And from that day onwards, I've made a conscious effort to be really positive when someone calls me on the phone, you know, to make them feel that they're doing, and that's a human thing, and that's the point. So it's not even the words they say, it's learning from their behaviors and their languages. And you think, well, that, you know, you can see why people do business with them, because everybody likes them, or every, you know, and that's a behavioral thing, and you can adapt behaviors or learn. So yeah, there's always going to be human benefits that you just can't replace with good old with tech answers. Of course, it's awesome in what it does, but it's never going to improve those things.
No, that to me sounds like you've been very successful in more than just business. So congratulations there as well. Finding a good wife by the sounds of it.
Wow. um, yes, that's not for me to say.
Okay, so if you were, we had a few people from the podcast sign up to the FSB. So if you're brand new to the FSB, what's a bit of advice that you would give to people to get the most out of it?
Yeah, I think, like you said, you've not really gone to networking events. We'll do it because you'll get from, like anything, you'll get out of it what you put into it.
Hmm.
And the other, one of the frustrations I have with lots of members I meet is that they've gone and paid for services that's included within their membership. So the thing
Yeah,
I always say, and particularly when people become new to the membership, just rather than try to remember everything FSB does, because it is extremely comprehensive, I always say, hey, just have at the back of your mind, if you've got a problem that needs solving or you need help with something, just think, oh, I wonder if FSB helped with that one. So that's probably the best way to learn. And then, like anything, over time, you become more knowledgeable of all the things that FSB does for you. But, you know, it's amazing. I meet people that have been members for decades, and I talk to them about one of the services, and they go, I didn't know that was in my membership, you know. And so that happens a lot. So yeah, principally, it's there as a safety net. It's there to catch you, and it's a tool. It's not sophisticated. It's not elegant like a lot of, you know, in terms of like a lot of sophisticated AI and stuff like that. It's a good old tool that literally says, go out and learn from other people and network. And on the other hand, use us as a resource when you need help with something.
yeah. I think the problem is because it's used as a safety net, there's a lot of out of sight, out of mind, and then people forget. But again, in my own experience, I've used the FSB multiple times, and every single time it made the price of the subscription per year completely worth it. So I know the FSB had a lot of success reducing the yearly membership from £195 to £165 in June, and because of the success, they've extended it completely capped. It's going to finish at the end of July. So if anyone wants to sign up to the FSB and you want to have Jim as your point of contact, you can sign up through our Discord community, or you can just drop a message in the chat now, and you can also, in the description, I'll put Jim's email address. You can contact him that way. Don't sign up by going directly to the website because you won't get signed up through Jim that way. And Jim is trying hard to become the highest rated advisor in the FSB. So we've got to support him there. He wants to get those numbers as well. Jim, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just basically, if you do sign up on the website, you won't get the 15% discount either. So there's more than one reason. But yeah, it just makes sense to do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good offer, especially the networking events. I'm definitely looking forward to attending my first one of those. I think that's all the questions I have for you today, Jim. Unless you had anything else you wanted to mention.
No, it's perfect. It's nice to chat with you again, and let's hope we can help lots more of your community. It'd be great to have as many as possible as members.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate your time today. It was I'm always very excited when I can talk to people who've already been through it and they can share their wisdom, because I know a lot of people like to make their own mistakes, and you have to agree that sometimes the best lessons you have in life are from your own mistakes. But yeah, I love talking to people like yourself, because just find so much value in it. To hear the paths you've already walked is very good. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. No problem. Very welcome.
Cool. All right. To anyone joining today, thank you for joining. We'll probably do another live call in about 2 weeks, I'd say. If there's anything that you want to see, let us know in the comments. And yeah, thank you all for coming. Jim, thank you very much.
No problems. More than welcome. Good to chat. Bye bye.